So I just looked up the symptoms of canine distemper, and it turns out it's the exact same symptoms of rabies. And the author of the article actually says at the near the end that in the wild they can't really tell the difference between distemper and rabies. In fact, to quote the article, it says, in the wild, it closely resembles rabies. Kind of reminds me of what they did with polio. Because if you remember, if you know your history, all you had to have was a little bit of nausea, diarrhea, maybe a fever, maybe you had some leg cramps or some weakness and lethargia, and they gave you a polio diagnosis. And then, after the vaccine came out, they reclassified what it means to be polio, so your symptoms went from polio to acute flaccid myelitis. You're not polio anymore, you're something else. So it went from all you had to have was a fever, nausea, leg cramps, and you were polio. And then all of a sudden it went to you have to be paralyzed for 2 weeks or 2 months, and then we'll call it polio. So they just reclassified the symptomology. They did the same thing with rabies. Because if you look up distemper symptoms versus rabies symptoms, they're exactly the same. And how is it diagnosed? Well, if you look up distemper, it says that it's diagnosed. The diagnosis is, you get one sentence. By the way, if you go and you look up how is it diagnosed, they give you one, there's a paragraph, but the first sentence, one sentence, it says that it's clinical. It's the clinical appearance and lab test. That's what you get out of the one sentence. And then the rest of the whole paragraph is all about how the disease affects you and this and that, and it has nothing to do with the question that's being asked is how is it diagnosed? Has nothing to do. You get one freaking sentence. So clinical appearance, meaning I'm the vet or doctor and I am observing that my patient is coughing, sneezing, they got watery eyes, there's some nasal discharge, fever. Those are clinical expressions, clinical appearance. So basically it's a clinical diagnosis. And then it also says lab tests. Like what kind of lab tests? Are you doing antibody, antigen? Are you doing PCR? Are you doing cell culture? What kind of lab tests are you doing? It doesn't say. It just says clinical appearance and lab test. Oh, trust the science. I don't think so. You guys did this with polio. You did it with AIDS. And you also did it with COVID. You reclassified the disease. The illness or the disease expression. It's like, I'll give you an example. Smallpox. If you had, and I'm just being general here, if you had, little pox all over your face and torso, then it was smallpox. But if you had mostly torso and genitals, then it was measles. And then if you had, torso, genitals, and legs, and maybe a little bit on your face, then it was cowpox. Or if you had a little bit under your arms and in your genitals, it was monkeypox. And I'm being general here, but this is exactly how they do it. If the expression is not identical, then it's something else. So if I have pox on my face and upper torso, well, they call that one disease, maybe smallpox. And if I have a couple on my face, a couple on my chest, but a whole bunch down low from genitals down through my legs, well, then that's something else. That's a different kind of disease. It's a different virus. It's the same expression. It's the same detox. It's the same disease. They just reclassified the diseases so that they could then sell you a measles vax and a polio vax and a smallpox vax and a COVID vax. So all they have to do is reclassify the disease. Same thing goes on with your dogs and your cats and your animals. Kennel cough, rabies, distemper, they're different expressions of the same disease. So if my dog has a cough and I take him into the vet and that's all he has is a cough, maybe some watery eyes, the doctor is going to go, that's kennel cough. But if I wait a little longer and my dog develops a cough and watery eyes and then later a runny nose and some discharge where his eyes are watering all day and they start to get crusty and pussy, oh, that's different. That's a different disease. That's distemper. Oh, your dog's twitching, your dog's having neurological problems, that's distemper. That's maybe rabies. Is he twitching and vomiting? Is he twitching? Is your dog agitated? Is he bitey and vomiting? Or, oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's all the same disease. It's the same disorder, the same expression, different layers of the same disease expression. And they classify them as different diseases. They give them different names, and then they come up with different vaccines. And that's how it works. They did it with polio, they did it with AIDS, they did it with measles, they did it with smallpox. And by the way, smallpox, chickenpox, monkeypox, rubella, scarlet fever, these are all the same disease on different stages of expression. They're not different viruses. They're the same detox expression. They're not different viruses. And there's no evidence to suggest that they are.